here.
Thank you, Tom. It's kind of a long journey from the back there.
Oh, it's all right. That's what you get for sitting so far away.
Plus, I had to start the
The
video
video,
there.
yeah.
So, hi, me. Good afternoon, Toastmasters. It is my pleasure to introduce our speaker this week. Karl will be completing his project number 3, which is Get to the Point. You ever sit at a meeting and think, gosh, how great, I don't have to speak today. I don't have to do anything. Well, Karl is here to tell us about how you have to be not a passive attendee. You have to be attentive, and he will explain the importance of learning something from every speaker. So everyone who thought that just because they weren't speaking, they could take a bye and relax, no. So for your listening and edification purposes, please help me welcome the sultry, high-performance driver, Karl, with his speech, Becoming a Better Speaker, Even If You're Not Speaking.
Good morning, everyone. How can you become a better speaker? The obvious answer is practice, give speeches. What better way to do that by joining the Toastmasters like I did? But you don't give a speech at every meeting. What else can you do? Listen. That's key. But more than just sitting in your seat and listening to someone else talk, what can you do? You can think about it. Was it a good speech? Was it not so good speech? But if it wasn't so good, why not? So if there's any one thing I want you to get from my lecture today, it's this. Even when you're not the speaker, don't just be a passive listener. You can learn a lot by watching other speakers, more than you'll learn just through giving your own speeches. And ask yourself, what did you like about that speaker? What does that speaker need to do to improve their speaking? Here's another thing to think about. What do the other people in the room like about that speaker? Maybe they're going to think of things that you didn't think about. And then say, listen to the speech evaluation or the general evaluator. What are the things that those people picked up that are areas for improvement for the speaker? And each of us has different styles, that's good, but there are things that you can pick up from other speakers that you could maybe help yourself in your own speaking. A few of the examples I wrote down. First is joy. You smile. And I think that's a great thing because you set the tone and you look like you're having fun. And I think for the audience, that if you're having fun, that helps the audience. It lightens the tone, and it makes for a better meeting. And it makes me think, am I smiling enough? Am I smiling too much? Maybe for giving a formal budget presentation to a senior executive. Maybe I shouldn't be smiling quite so much. And Jeff, I like to hear your stories. Use just enough body language to make it interesting, but not like you're speaking to preschoolers, or you don't need to emote to the back of an arena. Me, I get crazy hands. I'm sometimes a distraction. So I try and pay attention to what you're doing sometimes because it helps me think about what I'm doing with my hands. And it's like salt. A little bit of salt makes food taste better, and too much just ruins everything. Now Kyle's not here today for you guests. Kyle is a demonstration of how to do a table topics response. He gives a carefully worded, measured response, free, sounds like he wrote it 3 days ago, but in the back of his brain you can tell that he's thinking at 100 miles an hour. So, and this is a good skill to have when, say, you're answering a question from Dan Malone, or what if you're on the stand in a civil case, or if you have to testify at the MPSC or something like that. It's a good skill to have. Another person I thought of is Jerry. He's not here today either, but he has this fluid, easy style that I wish I had. For those of you who've been here when he's done table topics, he can come up and in the first sentence, he's got the entire audience laughing, which is great because now they're all with him and they're just waiting for the next thing that he's going to say. The difficulty in that for me is I don't always know how to do a good joke. And if the joke bombs, now you're going to dig yourself out of a hole for 90 seconds. So I pay attention when Jerry speaks because he does really have that nice, fluid, easy style. So those are just a few of the examples. I do watch the other speakers. And don't forget, like I mentioned, to listen to the evaluator. What did they say about the speaker? There's another role I want to talk about, beyond just being a speaker, and that's Toastmaster. Someday, you are going to be the Toastmaster. Even if you quit after today's meeting, you're going to be a Toastmaster. You may be leading a meeting at work. You might be organizing an event outside of work. You might be the master of ceremonies for something, a family gathering perhaps. So this is even more important that you're not a passive listener. One reason is the role of Toastmaster is going to be something that you're going to do even less than in your speaking roles. It's not every week that you're going to be Toastmaster. So you don't get to practice at it. So watch the Toastmaster, no pressure Tom. How do they kick off the meeting? How do they set the tone for the day? Did they own that podium? How do they make their handoffs? How do they step through the agenda? Do they just walk down through a bullet list? Or do they try and weave the whole thing into some sort of seamless production? Think about a play. It's not just different scenes, it's one story, even though it has different parts. And pay attention to timing. Go beyond just listening to the words, look at the gestures of your speakers, and see how the Toastmaster times the whole meeting. And I have one example I did want to mention. I went to an awards banquet for the Lansing Ad Club. And these are advertisements, so you've got print, TV spots, web pages, things like that. And they had a short video for each nomination. And it took a couple of seconds to load. So each time the Toastmaster would introduce the nominee, then there's the button, and there's this pause for 2 seconds while the entire audience sits in silence and waits for the video to load. And it was terrible. For me, it ruined the whole night. It's like stop and go traffic. It's just miserable and it's tedious. So pay attention, listen to what the Toastmaster is doing, and listen to how they do it to tie everything in together, keep things moving along. There's one last thing I want to touch on. It's not the most difficult thing you're going to do, but it could be the most uncomfortable, and I don't mean physically uncomfortable like a hot, sultry day. This is going to be emotionally uncomfortable. Go to the Rising Stars website, navigate to the video archive, and watch the videos of yourself speaking. You will be surprised, horrified, happy, all of the above, to hear the things that you don't realize you're doing. So you may think you're a super dynamic speaker, but on playback, you might be speaking a little slower than you think. You might be kind of monotone. You might be staring at your shoes, talking. But you may have, in your mind, completely different perception. And unlike me, I'll pack a 7-minute speech into 4.5 minutes. So that you get this blast of words and half-baked thoughts like when I'm doing my table topics. It's not the most effective way to speak, so for me, watching the videos is something important. And you should too. It makes you uncomfortable sometimes, but you'll learn a lot. So speaking is a skill that you use inside and outside of work. Could be you're the best man, matron of honor, milestone anniversary at a large family gathering. Maybe you win an award for volunteer work and asked to be, say, a few comments on your acceptance speech. So becoming a better speaker takes practice, of course. But I'm not the best man at a wedding every day. But I do go to weddings and other events. And that brings me back to my central point that rather than just sit and listen passively, I can be an evaluator. What went well? What could be improved? What did I observe that I could use to improve my own speaking skills? Can you become a better speaker? Yes. It takes practice, of course. But the answer is still yes, even when you don't get a chance to speak. But you do need to listen. Thank you for your attention, everyone. Mr. Toastmaster.